Hi, can anybody hear me?
Yes. Good evening. I'm Kalamazoo Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain, and welcome to tonight's Kalamazoo City Commission meeting for July 6, 2020. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the city's Facebook page and also on the city's YouTube channel. You can also listen on your phone by calling area code 269-552-6425 and entering meeting ID number 980-6950-7605 when prompted. And you may also leave a 3-minute public comment for tonight's meeting by calling area code 269-226-6573. And I'd like to turn tonight's meeting over to City of Kalamazoo's Mayor, David Anderson.
Thank you very much, Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain. Welcome everybody on this very warm July evening to our July 6th, 2020 regular business meeting of the Kalamazoo City Commission. Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Cunningham.
Here.
Commissioner Hess.
Here.
Commissioner Knott. Commissioner Cradle.
Present.
Commissioner Urban.
Here.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Borling. There are two commissioners absent at this time, Commissioner Knott, or just Commissioner Knott, correct? Is there a motion to excuse Commissioner Knott?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Cunningham, supported by Commissioner Hess. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The absent commissioner is excused. For our opening ceremony tonight, we have first our invocation, and the invocation is being provided by Michelle Scheidt of the Fetzer Institute. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for inviting me to be with you again this evening. As we prepare to begin this important meeting tonight, I invite us to take a moment to open our hearts and open our spirits as we ask for the wisdom that is most needed at this time. Let us begin with a moment of silence. During this time of unprecedented global challenges, we call to mind and to heart all who are affected by the difficulties facing our world, our nation, and our city. We remember all who are suffering pain, loneliness, trauma, illness, discrimination, or gun violence. We remember that all of us are suffering from the evil of racism in our society, and we ask for strength and courage to have difficult conversations and to work together for change. We also remember the many people who are suffering economically, who are not able to meet their basic needs for food and shelter. We remember, too, those who struggle with change as we face a future that is filled with the unknown. We ask that all may be safe, that all may be free from fear, and that all may know love in their lives. We also pause tonight to give thanks. We offer gratitude for the care that is being extended during this time. We give thanks for our government and our city leaders. We offer gratitude for those who are working for greater justice in our society. We give thanks for first responders, for medical personnel, and for all public servants who are working for the good of all. We give thanks for activists and for all leaders who are working to create a better world for everyone. We ask for courage to respond effectively and compassionately in these times of so much difficulty. In this gathering tonight, we ask for guidance for our city and our leaders. We ask for kindness to listen compassionately, even when ideas are difficult. We ask for wisdom to make the best decisions for all. We ask for openness to respect each person's ideas, even if we may disagree. And we ask for the gift of our democracy to be present, that the voice of the people may be heard, including those people who are most marginalized. As together we yearn for a community that is equitable, we ask for the strength to work for the good of all. As together we seek to build the beloved community that supports and nurtures each person. Tonight, we face important issues and we want to hear all voices. We ask for insight and guidance to do what is right. As we begin these conversations, we remember the many needs of our community and our responsibility to respond with fairness, compassion, and wisdom. Thank you, and I extend my best wishes for each of you and for the good work you are doing tonight on behalf of all of us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your thoughts. Commissioners, you have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any changes you'd like to see? Seeing no changes, next item is communications. Deputy City Manager Moore, are there any communications?
There are no communications, Mayor.
Thank you, DCM Moore. Next on our item on our agenda is E. It is a public hearing, and the public hearing needs to be opened to receive comments on ordinance to temporarily remove the required minimum off-street parking requirements of section 507.2, required vehicular off-street parking spaces through November 1st, 2020, to allow existing parking areas to be used for outdoor sales, dining, and gathering in the wake of COVID-19. Is there a staff presentation on this item?
There is not a staff presentation, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Deputy City Manager. Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain, are there any public comments on this item?
We've received one. It is a little bit unusual, Mayor. We received right before the meeting a note from a citizen who said their phone was not working properly, and they asked if we could read it in for the message for tonight. So we don't normally do that, but because their phone was not working, we did that. So I'm going to read that. It's from a Mr. Jeff Messer, city resident. And he states, I am in favor of this temporary emergency zoning ordinance. In general, I support allowing private property owners to use their land as they choose without interference from the government. Ideally, this would be a successful change for business owners, and they will run out of on-site parking space that would cause their customers to park on adjacent properties. I want to hear what steps city staff will take to ensure that business and nonprofit organization owners get permission from adjacent landowners to allow their patrons to park off-site. For those who haven't read the agenda report, this temporary zoning ordinance also permits adjacent businesses and nonprofit organizations to expand to city-owned on-street parking spaces with the permission of the traffic board. I imagine this might include the return of parklets to the Kalamazoo Mall, which are small wood decks that are placed atop parking spaces. A question, will there be a limit to this, or is it conceivable that all parking spaces on the Kalamazoo Mall will be converted to outdoor dining and retail? What about restaurants outside of downtown that have already moved their dining space outdoors to city-owned right-of-ways, that is the curb lawn? Has city staff authorized the use of grass-covered curb lawns for expanding dining and retail space? What about wide sidewalks outside of downtown? Thank you, Jeff Messer, city resident. That's the only comment we received for that public hearing, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, DCM Chamberlain. So the motion is I can go ahead and read that again. The motion is to have the public hearing to receive comments on an ordinance, which I read before. Is there a motion to support this?
So moved.
Motion made by, I'm sorry, I missed that.
I moved it.
Okay, Commissioner Urban, supported by, I saw a couple hands. Okay,
Support.
Commissioner Hess, all right. Commissioners, discussion. Being no discussion, I wonder if City Planner Anderson, if you'd be willing to comment on a couple of the questions. Are you prepared to do that?
Yes, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
Great. To answer Mr. Messer's questions, downtown, Andrew Hahn with Downtown Kalamazoo Partnership has been working very closely with the city to open up more sidewalk space and the potential of using on-street parking space in downtown, doing that as a collective activity, working with his businesses. Planning staff has been doing similar activities to set up our businesses outside of downtown. And tomorrow, if this ordinance passes, we'll be sending a communication to all of our neighborhood business associations and neighborhood associations, letting them know that one, there's now a temporary opportunity to use their off-street parking for gathering, dining, retail. In addition, we've set up a streamlined process for businesses outside of downtown to set up cafes in their sidewalk space. Again, use it for gathering, retail, or dining, and as well as the opportunity to use the on-street parking for parklets. And we've set up a review process to do that in a way that has not previously existed. In terms of having so many people come that the parking lots become overflowing between taking some spaces for dining, retail, or gathering. Right now, all these businesses are operating at a reduced capacity because what's allowed by the state. And so I don't anticipate in the short term that we will run into that problem until we increase our capacities to get closer to being full capacity. So hopefully that covers most of the questions.
Very helpful. When would this ordinance go into effect?
Because this is an emergency ordinance, it would go into effect tonight.
All right, thank you so much. Any other questions or discussion? Commissioner Cradle.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could just spend a little time sharing with the public about the impact on alcohol sales in these areas and what steps they would need to take to serve alcohol beyond just, food consumption.
Sure. So the ordinance in and of itself does not allow alcohol consumption in these spaces. That is all governed by the state. And I might lean on Clyde a little bit right now to talk about what the state has allowed in designated social zones and other emergency ordinances.
Attorney Robinson.
Thank you. The state has authorized I don't want to say a special kind of license, but they've authorized, usually there's several steps in order to have outside beverages sold. And so they've loosened up those regulations a little bit. Now you still have to have a marked closed area. You just can't get a beverage and go walk down the street. That's a entirely different program, even though I don't think you still can have open containers on the street. You can buy cocktails to go. That's, like I said, a different program. There is a special license that is for free that a licensed businesses can apply for in order to serve alcohol in their attached parking spaces. And also if a city like, and Kalamazoo is not the first one to do this, if you're going to permit that type of beverage like on a sidewalk or an adjacent right-of-way, you can also get a license for that. There are some restrictions. Again, it has to be either adjacent or within 25 feet of your business. And you have to, at least in the case of going on to the public as a sidewalk or in a street, you need the municipalities or the jurisdiction who has whatever jurisdiction over the street to give you permission to do that. So again, if it was a state trunk line, you'd need the state's permission. But for us, we're talking about basically most streets are under the city's jurisdiction now, and you would need our permission to do that. And that's one of the things that we're working with Andrew Hahn in downtown in order to open up the Kalamazoo Mall. And when I say open it up, I guess it's to close it off, to make it return to what it was in the 50s and 60s, more of a pedestrian type of venue, particularly on the weekends. This ordinance is really aimed at Friday, Saturday type of entertaining.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. And what, Commissioner Cradle?
Oh, sorry. I had a couple follow-up questions. Sorry. Another question for you as well is just, Christina, could you just reiterate again? So this isn't just exclusively to downtown. This is to serve, any dining establishment or the other entities listed out in Kalamazoo, the city of Kalamazoo.
Correct. Most downtown businesses, as it relates to the ordinance in front of you tonight, most downtown businesses don't have that private parking lot. It's generally common parking. So this will probably have a larger effect outside of downtown where there are individual businesses or clustered businesses with a parking area. And so that absolutely will have an impact outside of downtown. And then, having this clear review process and some very basic standards for using the sidewalk and potentially on-street parking, would be everywhere based on individual requests.
Sure. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that for everybody at home so that, people don't think it's just a program just for our downtown businesses, that it's to support all of our local businesses.
Right.
The third question I just had for you as well was just asking, say if there's a resident or an area where a resident's having some issues with, as Jeff described in his comment, where they're having some issues, they can't resolve it with the restaurant owner or whatnot, what would be the best way for them to reach out to get some assistance from the city?
This is Mr. Messer's question regarding use of park. If the parking were to get too used, where would they go? So the current parking ordinance that's in effect right now without any emergency rules allows on-street parking within a certain distance to count for somebody's parking spaces. We also allow with agreement of adjacent owners also within a certain distance, if they have extra spaces in their lot, to count towards any requirements. Generally, those are up to the property owners to work out those agreements rather than the city stepping in. But the city could absolutely, if there's an issue of wanting to know where on-street parking would be available, that is something that we could have a discussion with a resident about what streets are allowed for overnight, which ones aren't. And if there are any other parking restrictions, we could assist in that department.
Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners? Yeah, Commissioner Hess.
So if it is the mall, will the mall just be closed between Thursday and Sunday, and open to traffic during the week? What's the plan there?
Sure. So unfortunately, Andrew Hahn is not here tonight to give all those details, but my understanding is that every Friday in the near term, the mall is closed to vehicular traffic to make a large market space. So every Friday. In terms of activities over the weekends, I think those were specifically referring to the opportunity for alcohol sales. Is that correct, Attorney Robinson?
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
So Ped Mall on Fridays is my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cunningham.
This is probably a left field question.
Is there any update? I'm just curious on the process of looking into changing our one-ways into two-ways.
So, yes, I can give a quick update. I know that's, I'll be very brief. We are in the final stages of that project, which started of August of last year. At the last meeting, which took place on March 5th or 6th, we presented all the alternatives, the series of this converts to one way, this doesn't, this would be this many lanes, et cetera, was presented to the public. And one option rose to the top. That option is being studied now in detail by the consultants, looking at intersections to figure out if there will be delays, lane configuration, and so forth. And we hope to be able to come back to the public before the end of the summer and present all of that information.
Yeah, Commissioner Cunningham, go ahead.
Just want to highlight for the public, these initiatives are our opportunity to really create more business traffic for our downtown Kalamazoo, and something that I really appreciate, because when I brought this up in 2015, I think I only highlighted kind of the downtown area, but what I appreciate is the city staff expanding that to include Westnedge and Park. And if you are familiar with, as a community, if you're familiar with the Westnedge and Park north side of town, there's a lot of vacant lots between those two streets. And my feeling towards it is because it's almost a highway type feel going through the north side of our community. But also, I think it'll be a culture change for the community at large. Obviously, we're dealing with that on the Cobit side. But also the principle that, our downtown will essentially, you can't go from the east side, my long-term expectation, you won't be able to go from the east side to the west side in 3 minutes. And that'll be due to traffic calming through our downtown. One, two, you'll get to see downtown through a different view for the traffic goers through downtown, as you'll be traveling the opposite way on the one-way. Which also gives our businesses the opportunity to not just promote and advertise, from one direction, but from both directions. So I just want to compound that on there, that I think that's a great opportunity. Obviously, it'll take 4 votes from the commission. So just putting that out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Cunningham. Other discussion on this topic? And Planner Anderson, is there an application process?
Sure. So for use outside of the downtown, for use of sidewalk space and right-of-way space, we are asking everyone to fill out the right-of-way encroachment application. And that's available on the city's website. And the communication that I send out tomorrow will have a direct link to that. And I have been working with Anthony Ladd in Public Services. And between the two of us, we'll be able to answer everybody's questions and review applications in a timely manner.
Thank you so much. Any other discussion?
Mayor, I just want to point out something. This is a little bit different because this is kind of the first reading and also adoption. This action is being taken under the emergency ordinance provision of the city charter. The reason for the emergency was that because we are in the COVID epidemic, these are businesses that have been offered opportunities under liquor control and other state authorization to use their space in a way that they normally would not. And so normally this type of ordinance would have to go to the Planning Commission for a hearing and then come back to the City Commission in 2 readings. And that would basically take a couple of months to do. So hence the need for the commission to have 1 reading. It is a temporary, it sunsets. So this is not a permanent ordinance. However, as an emergency ordinance, it needs 5 affirmative votes in order to take effect immediately.
Thanks, Attorney Robinson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott. I'm sorry, Commissioner Cradle,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
There, yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Thank you, Clerk Borling. Next is the opportunity for general public comments. Deputy City Manager Chamberlain.
Yes, we do have a number of comments tonight, and we will begin those right away. Just a second, we queue them up for the presentation.
My name is William Howson. I live in Comstock Township. I'm calling as a concerned landlord in Kalamazoo. I have a number of properties in the center of the city. We are worried that changes will be made to how we can qualify tenants for our properties without careful consultation with the landlords in Kalamazoo first. We would very much like some representative landlords to be part of the committee reviewing this issue so that landlords can have their concerns addressed while helping to tackle the homelessness issue in Kalamazoo. Most landlords own only 1 to 3 properties. If the monthly rent of a property is $1,000, then the landlord might make approximately $200 per month after paying their mortgage, property taxes, insurance, repairs, maintenance, and property management fees. That's just under $2,500 a year. This is okay if the landlord has a good tenant who pays their rent on time and looks after the property. Unfortunately, if the landlord has a bad tenant who doesn't pay the rent and has to be evicted or seriously damages the properties, then this can cost the landlord between $2,000 and $4,000. This will more than wipe out all the profits that a landlord might have made in a year from that property. Thus, the landlord wants to guard against this by having criteria for tenant selection that helps mitigate that possibility. The criteria obviously will be in line with the current Fair Housing Act. If landlords in Kalamazoo are forced to modify their criteria for tenant selection, and this leads to significant losses, as detailed earlier, then they are likely to act by selling the property to a resident, which will decrease the rental housing pool, or by selling it to a slumlord who doesn't care about the tenants or the state of their properties and thus can afford these losses. We would suggest that this is not what the committee desires. To sum up, we implore the committee to include landlord representatives, to allow in-person meeting with landlord representatives before making any decision, and to put this off for a few months if necessary due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Landlords in Michigan have already been put under pressure due to the moratorium on evictions, and thus their potential inability to collect rents without any compensation. Thank you very much for your consideration in this matter. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Nathaniel Krause. I am a resident of Kalamazoo City, and I'm calling to voice support for Greater Kalamazoo Renters Union's resolution to protect renters and tenants in this area during the COVID crisis. We will be introducing what's called the Ithaca Resolution, which will urge you to forgive unpaid rent April to June, forgive late fees due through June, demand no eviction throughout July and to be extended as needed, and obligates landlords to extend leases at current rate for the next lease cycle, and urges a national mortgage and rent forgiveness fund. Greater Kalamazoo Renters Union is working on organizing tenants and making sure people are taken care of and safe during this crisis. And I'd also like to voice support for the housing ordinance that is being pushed through by Patrice Griffin. That's also a very good thing to protect renters and tenants. Thank you. Bye.
Hey, I tried to press 2 for the other option, but it didn't do anything, so I'm just going to go with this one. Hey, my name is Emily Connor. I live within the city of Kalamazoo. I'm calling for the city to protect renters with the resolution outlined by Greater Kalamazoo Renters Union and No Rent Michigan. The demands are for a resolution supporting rent forgiveness for the months of April through June, forgive late fees through June, no evictions through July to be extended as needed, obligating landlords to extend leases at the current rate for the next lease cycle, and urging a national mortgage and rent forgiveness fund. An additional demand we have here in Kalamazoo is that the city brings the financial resources it has to bear from the Foundation for Excellence and those who fund it to bridge the existing gaps and prevent all City of Kalamazoo residents from being evicted due to COVID-19 related hardships. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Sprague, and I do live in the city limits of Kalamazoo. My question tonight is regarding a pop-up message that I have seen on a Freedom of Information Act request that I recently made. So the response back to me through the Public Records Office at Kalamazoo mi.gov.qa.us. I requested a record and it was partially denied. Here is the highlighted in blue text when everything else is in black, bold, big message in the center. KDPS policy 423.7, recording media storage and integrity. Once submitted for storage, all recording media will be labeled and stored in a designated secure area. All recording media that is not booked as evidence will be retained for a minimum of 60 days and disposed of in accordance with the established records retention schedule. And that's the end of that. So my questions are these. First of all, is that new, that policy? I'd like to know when that was established because I don't recall ever seeing that pop up before. I could be wrong, but yeah, so if you could answer when was that established? And if we need to answer this, you know, after some research, I understand that, but it needs to be answered, please. Also, it says it needs to be labeled and stored in a designated secure area. I find that pretty vague, especially since files do not require a physical space any longer as they used to. So I would appreciate it if the mayor, the manager, and the commissioners could find the answers to that, if you could define that designated secure area. And then it also says all media that is not booked as evidence will be retained for a minimum of 60 days and disposed of in accordance with the established records retention schedule. So my question, I have two questions regarding that. First, is all police video considered evidence? As a citizen, I would think it should be. All police video. And finding a way to store that for a minimum of 5 years, preferably 10. The second question is, it says all media that's not booked as evidence. So, so how is it determined what shall be booked as evidence or not, and why are some things collected and not booked as evidence? That might be a big question, but I really appreciate you taking the time to answer it. All right, it's July 6th. I appreciate your time. Bye-bye.
Hi, my name is Katie Johnson. I live in Kalamazoo inside city limits, and I'm calling to voice my support of the Ithaca Resolution. It is a resolution put forth by No Rent Michigan and the Greater Kalamazoo Renters Union that has some really important protections in place for renters, especially given the current economic and health crisis. It's really important that we don't just push off people having to pay rent, that we address the overall situation that people don't have the money to pay their rent. They will not have the money at any point. And the rent needs to be forgiven. There needs to be no late fees. Evictions need to, the ban on evictions needs to continue really until we have the crisis completely managed. And there should be a cap on rent. Landlords shouldn't be able to raise rent on tenants who are, in the midst of an economic crisis. Again, it's called the Ithaca Resolution, and I think it is important for the city to support it. Thank you.
Good evening. This is Sarah Joshi. I live in the city of Portage. I'm with you tonight because I am your Deputy County Clerk and Election Specialist. County Clerk Tim Snow is not running for re-election, and I'm running for his position. The role of County Clerk is one of the most complex in county government, responsible for upholding nearly 600 state statutes. It's not an entry-level position, nor is it appropriate to use the position as a stepping stone to higher office. Not only am I the only candidate in the race with any experience, I actually have extensive experience. I have 20 years of election experience, including the last 4 as your Deputy County Clerk and Election Specialist. I have participated in conducting more than 65 elections, 8 recounts, and 3 recalls. And I have trained hundreds of poll workers on their election day duties, as well as dozens of candidates on their campaign finance responsibilities. I have a master's degree in public administration, and I'm the only state of Michigan accredited election official in the race. Additionally, I was awarded Kalamazoo County Government's Service Excellence Award in 2018 for the professional, unbiased manner in which I conduct work. Significantly, I'm endorsed by Tim Snow, as well as 3 Kalamazoo City Commissioners and 1 former City Commissioner. These include Commissioners Griffin, Hess, and Cunningham, as well as former City Commissioner Cooney. And I'm also endorsed by the many elected and appointed officials throughout Kalamazoo County who know me and rely on me to support and coordinate their work. For more information, please see sarahjoshi.net and follow me on Facebook at Sarah Joshi for Clerk. Thank you for your time and attention, and thank you for supporting professional leadership in the County Clerk Register's office by voting for Sarah Joshi on August 4th. Thank you.
Hello. I own rental property in the city of Kalamazoo. I'm extremely worried about the changes that you're planning to make in the ordinance and how we're going to qualify tenants in future without careful consultation. And I think that you need to carefully consult landlords and engage them in the process before you actually put anything forward. I think that some landlords need to be on this committee, and I think that landlords need to be on any board that considers the issues if a landlord is said to be in violation of the issues. Hi. So I think that you need to consider how much landlords are actually making on these properties. In some instances, they're making very little. I think you need to understand that when we invest in these properties, and we need to be careful about who we rent to in terms of what damages might be made to property and what losses we might make if we rent to people who we then have to evict for non-payment of rent. Not considering eviction is a major issue for us. It's one of the guidelines that we use because these people who don't pay rent are very often not going to pay rent for us as well. And I understand that there are individual circumstances and we often take those into account. But to say that we can't take evictions into account at all is very worrying. In addition, I think it's very difficult if we have multifamily properties, if we can't consider somebody's criminal record. If their criminal record is for some kind of violence or some kind of sexual offence, and we have people who are vulnerable to those, then I think that is a real problem in renting to those individuals. And I think we have to be able to take those into account. We often have had tenants who move out at the end of their tenancy, and it costs us a lot of money to get the property back into the situation that we would need to rent it again. So we need to be able to have some control over who we rent to and how our property is going to be used. So I really think that we need to be able to put our point of view in person to the city about this ordinance. In addition, I think that in the current circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic, it should be put off until there isn't an issue, because to put that on landlords at the moment with all the other things that they've got going on, I mean, you know, we sometimes we have landlords who are not being paid rent at this moment in time because the tenants aren't able to or won't pay their rent. It is a time of economic difficulty for landlords as well as for other people. And I think that you really need to address this at a later time when individuals who have a stake in the circumstances can meet to put their case forward in person. Thank you. My name is Jackie Howson, and as I said, I'm a landlord. I don't live in the city of Kalamazoo, but I have property in the city of Kalamazoo. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Parker James. I live at 599 Pingree Street, and I'm calling in support of the Housing Equity Ordinance. I would like to urge the commissioners to introduce that ordinance as soon as possible. We really can't wait. It's so important that we have, ban discrimination further in housing so people have a fair chance to get the housing they so desperately need. And we know that there's a lot of housing needs in Kalamazoo. I would also like to urge the Commission to take up the Ithaca Resolution that's being introduced by the Greater Kalamazoo Renters Union to protect tenants in this time, forgive back rent, and put pressure on our state lawmakers to do more to support renters during the COVID-19 pandemic we're experiencing. So thank you so much. And I hope you all will take action on those two items in support of housing. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Andrew Argo. I live here in the city of Kalamazoo. I'm calling today as a member of the Greater Kalamazoo Renters Union. Basically, I want to talk about, or at least ask the city. We emailed all of you the Ithaca resolution earlier today. The demands are as follows. Rent forgiveness for the months of April through June. Forgive late fees through June. No evictions through July to be extended as needed. An obligation for landlords to extend leases at the current rate for the next lease cycle. And an urging of a national mortgage and rent forgiveness fund. This is in conjunction with renters and tenants organizations across the state. And while a lot of this resolution is about trying to, get some things pushed at, the state level, what we're really hoping to accomplish with this resolution is not only, getting that public pressure from the city of Kalamazoo behind it, but I really wanted to emphasize this. We need to look also at how we can bring local resources to bear to kind of cut off at the head this potential mass eviction crisis. An additional demand that we have here for Kalamazoo at the local level, we're urging the city to bring the financial resources it has to bear from the Foundation for Excellence and those who fund it in order to bridge existing gaps and prevent all City of Kalamazoo residents from being evicted due to COVID-19 related hardship. Anybody who's been paying attention to the eviction diversion program that Governor Whitmer recently announced, $50 million is not a whole lot of money. It is really going to be kind of a drop in the bucket. For anything like that to actually work at scale, it's going to need additional funding resources. Here in Kalamazoo, I think we have a unique opportunity to, between, the philanthropists and the nonprofit organizations and the other resources here in town, I think it is an attainable goal to try to make sure that there are zero evictions due to COVID-19. It's really just, does the city have the will to do it? And I really am going to push any of those well-meaning philanthropists who might be listening to this call or might be on this meeting. I'm really urging you, like y'all know who I am, all that stuff. We need to protect the people in our city from this crisis. Otherwise, it's going to be a massive homelessness crisis that we're going to be dealing with. And as we laid out in the information packet we sent to the City Commission, it is also disproportionately going to affect our Black and brown residents here in the city of Kalamazoo. So yes, again, I really hope the city has the wherewithal and the will to do something to address this issue. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Hoffman. I live on the north side of Kalamazoo. I'm calling in reference to the Housing Equity Ordinance and to say how important it is for us to move this body of work through the commission and get it passed on behalf of some of the most marginalized and disenfranchised brothers and sisters we have within our city. When you think about COVID and everything that happened, the disparities in housing and people not having a place to stay was glaring. And so, the ordinance is going to make a huge impact, not only on the lives of men and women, but that of children. And I just want to implore you all to really take time and let's get this done. We've been working on this as a community for over 2 years now, and the time is now. We must make a stand and take a stand on behalf of some of our most valuable brothers and sisters within the city of Kalamazoo. Once we do this work, I know there will be a ripple effect throughout the county. So again, this is Stephanie Hoffman, and I live on the north side of Kalamazoo.
Hi, my name is Kathy Basin. I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I am calling in support of the housing ordinance that has been presented to you. I currently work with Isaac and the Housing Task Force, as well as I canvassed for quite a few months up until election last year. And I was introducing this ordinance to a lot of the residents in the city of Kalamazoo. I would have to say at least about 99% of everybody was definitely in agreement with it. We definitely need to get something in the city and make sure that everyone has housing, equal housing. We definitely need to make sure this is done as soon as possible. I know right now we're hit with COVID, but kids are going to get ready to be going back to school. I also drove the school bus. There were so many kids that was always displaced, and when they were displaced for months. And I don't really feel that this is fair. Everyone deserves equal housing, and it really shouldn't take as long in order for people to be placed in housing or to be able to obtain housing. So I think that you should hurry up and draft this ordinance in and make sure that we're taking care of the city, because we definitely have to all do this together, because if we're not affected directly, we always know someone who is affected. Thank you.
Hello, this is Toby Hannah Davies from Isaac. I'm co-chair of the Isaac and TRHT Housing Task Force with Stephanie Hoffman from Open Doors, Kalamazoo. I'm calling you to ask you to adopt the Housing Equity Ordinance as soon as you possibly can because the needs are so great. All of us who are white need to understand that either we are anti-racist or we are supporting the racist policies that created all our housing problems. There's no neutrality. The community needs you to be courageous and take the anti-racist step of adopting the Housing Equity Ordinance so that many more of your constituents will be able to get access to housing that is available right now, but not available to them. Please make it happen before the families' children go back to school in the fall. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Charlotte Davis, and I am the Executive Director of Isaac. I do live in Kalamazoo. Good evening to our Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Commissioners and staff. As many of you know, Isaac is a collaborative of different congregations and organizations and partners. We at Isaac understand the power of bringing folks together for justice and also the challenges of keeping folks together. But we sincerely know and have experienced the awesome work that can happen from staying at the table. Tonight, I want to lift the housing equity work that many have been working together on, Isaac along with valued partners such as TRHT, the City of Kalamazoo, Fair Housing Center, the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, and others. And we want to lift that our Vice Mayor was vital in getting the housing ordinance work started years back and continues now in housing equity work currently. Even with our housing equity work, we honor that collaborations are never easy, but they are so very powerful. That is when we see the changes that help us move together toward the beloved community. Thank you to all partners for showing up and staying at the table for equity. We at Isaac are looking forward to seeing the housing ordinance move forward soon, especially as COVID-19 is amplifying inequities. I wanted to share a focus group quote from an older Black gentleman in 2018. He said, "I hope that we as a collective unit, unified unit, bring some resolve to this because I sat on a committee like this several years ago when a former commissioner was on the city commission, and I attended forums like this. And we got a big promise from, we're going to fix the housing, we're going to build affordable housing, and they did. The homes were selling for $250,000. Who do you know that's homeless is sitting on $250,000? That's why I hope that this go around. The solution can't be that difficult. We're not talking brain surgery. We're talking about affordable housing for every person sitting at this table and then some." End quote. These conversations he spoke of would have happened sometime between 2003 and 2007. It's 2020. The time is now, and we are ready, and you are too. We thank you for bringing this ordinance before the commission soon so that the voices we heard during our focus groups and sessions will not be in vain, and that our beloved community members experiencing housing inequities will experience real change. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Lillian Slack. I live within the city limits of Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I am calling the city to protect renters with a resolution that has been outlined by Kalamazoo Renters Union and by No Rent Michigan, which is the larger renters union across the state. So the demands in this resolution are surrounding rent forgiveness for the months April through June, forgiving late fees through June, advocating for no evictions through July, and this to be extended as needed as COVID progresses, obligating landlords to extend their leases with their current rates and not jacking up the rates because they can, urging the National Mortgage and Rent Forgiveness Fund. So that one is just being in support of that and advocating for that. So additionally, bringing financial resources that we already have from the Foundation for Excellence and using them to bridge existing gaps and prevent all City of Kalamazoo residents from being evicted due to COVID-19. As you probably know, we already have a big problem with homelessness in Kalamazoo, and this is going to be crazy worse if we let basically a huge portion be evicted as a result of COVID-19. If you've seen anything about the statistics of the percentage of people who've lost their jobs in this, you know that we're reaching about 50% of the population who are jobless, and that leads to crazy evictions if we don't do something to prevent it. So that's all I have to say. I hope you have a great day, whoever listens to this. All right, bye.
Hello, this is Andrew Argo. I live in the city of Kalamazoo. This is a separate comment for basically the progress of the discussion that was held at the last meeting concerning racial equity and police brutality. I wanted to chime in. Once again, I want to echo, I support the platform of PACT and what they have brought to the fore about their next steps that they want done. I also just wanted to take an opportunity. I heard some very kind of distressing stuff at the last meeting from the police chief, kind of talking about, the evenings of June 1st and 2nd. Again, really just kind of justifying everything that happened. So I just wanted to hone in on a couple of things in particular. They mentioned that part of the reason that certain officers that weekend were in riot gear or elevated gear out of the responsibility to protect officers in those sort of protest situations. I know this is very contextual, but it's definitely not always the case. A good example, in 2016, the Philadelphia Police Department had all of their officers in regular uniforms. That was a very intentional and strategic decision to de-escalate tensions throughout the week, which again were much larger and much more chaotic than anything that ended up happening in Kalamazoo. Also, the chief said after 10 p.m. on June 1st, there were no protests. It was civil unrests. I will admit I was not down there personally, but there are numerous videos and eyewitness reports that contradict that statement. Witnesses reported that the destruction on the mall was separate from the protest downtown. The police chief mentioned that some of these agitators intermingled with the protest crowd. Even if that was the case, it does make it sound like a bit of collective punishment occurred. Also, it's worth mentioning several witnesses reported that property destruction did not begin until after Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety engaged in a very provocative arrest of a black man right in front of the protesters. I see also the chief also mentioned that they didn't use any rubber bullets. That's technically, technically true, but they did use projectile rounds. I believe they used pepper bullets. I think instead of explaining that by just leaving it out as denial, it's almost like a lie by omission. And I did not think it was in very good faith. And then finally, the use of tear gas was justified on June 1st and 2nd. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record. Yes, it is legitimately a war crime. Most developed countries no longer use it on their civilian populations. I would recommend y'all, I have a book recommendation I'll send to y'all about tear gas, but people have died. It causes severe issues, people's respiratory systems, which again, it's even more unconscionable really to use during a pandemic like this. And I just wanted to finish out by saying on June 2nd, I really don't understand any tangible justification for using tear gas. It was ostensibly a peaceful protest for Black lives and against the arbitrary curfew. It was not the police's first and only option. When I was committed civil disobedience downtown a few years ago, we were arrested, quickly processed, and released. With extra personnel, it becomes even more baffling why this wasn't done. And the police could have also very easily, and this would have been the best de-escalatory action, done nothing and waited for protesters to dissipate organically. Thank you very much. And I hope, at the very least, I hope the city bans the use of tear gas. Thank you.
Hey, how's everybody doing this evening? My name is Ed Genesis. I am a Northside resident. I am also a community leader, criminal justice reform organizer, and I am calling in to talk about the pop-up events myself and a few other community leaders have been doing. We did one last Thursday at North Pole Party Store, and we will continue doing it until the 23rd of this month. Next week, Thursday, we will be at Dacius, which is on Douglas on the north side. Myself and a bunch of community leaders. We will also be at Lessman's the week after that. We are gearing up towards an event which will be held on August 1st at LaCrone Park on the north side. Shouts out to Isaac, TRHT, Michigan United, and all of the community leaders that have played a part with this, the Gun Violence Task Force, Smile Savers, Tammy Ray, Orlando Little, and thank you to the city. Peace.
Hello, my name is Dr. Tiffany White, and my family and I live in Kalamazoo County in Richland, Michigan. And I want to express to the commissioners that our family fully supports the Housing Equity Ordinance. Kalamazoo County has a shortage of affordable housing and an enormous issue of homelessness. And this local ordinance will assist in combating this. It's especially important for the safety of people during a pandemic and will be really important for children as they return to school. Thank you very much.
My name is Jacob Johnson, fourth generation Kalamazoo resident, community social worker, Kalamazoo Promise recipient. I want to address this recording message specifically to David Anderson and Jim Ritzma. I would love to have a follow-up conversation with you all specifically about backing our reparations agenda. In addition to supporting the work around rent and affordable housing, David Anderson, you need to look at yourself and the work that you've been doing around housing. Of course, you are only one individual, and by no means I'm trying to put all of the housing blame in Kalamazoo on you alone. But I would love for you to step up and be bold and be radical and think about what more we can do to ensure quality of life for Kalamazoo residents, because what's been happening for the last however many years has not been working, and we can see that through our housing crisis right now. I was excited, maybe not excited is the right word, to see some of the work with Shared Prosperity Kalamazoo around being specific in addressing Black-led initiatives through line item budget and through specifically talking about that. I would like to be clear, City Manager and David Anderson, that I expect you all to do the same. That yes, Shared Prosperity Kalamazoo is the poverty reduction leg of the city, but as the two hierarchical commanders in chief, y'all got to do something. So I'm looking forward to a conversation. I'm looking forward to hearing you speak out about backing a reparations agenda. The economic divide in Kalamazoo is so great that we're not going to home ownership our way. We're not going to rent our way. We're not going to entrepreneur our way out of this. We need some serious conversations about specifically addressing the racial disparities. And I want you to know that I will continue to be here, and pressure will continue to be applied until I hear from your mouths that you will back a reparations agenda, until we have a line item behind it. So shout out to the Honorable Vice Mayor Griffin. We got work to do, y'all. I need bold, radical leadership. I need it. Fourth generation Kalamazoo resident, and we can do it. So looking forward to the conversation. We have initiatives that are ready to take on the support from the city, but we also need to go above and beyond around a specific Black agenda that includes housing specifically for Black folks in Kalamazoo. Because when we look at the racial disparities around economics, housing, education, whatever, we have to be specific about talking about Black folks. Kalamazoo County named race and racism a public health crisis. Let's do the work, Kalamazoo. We will be here continually, so please know that. And until we see some more further movement from you all, City Manager Ritzma, David Anderson, we will be applying pressure. All power to the people, Black Lives Matter.
Hi, my name is Rebecca McCleary, and I live in the city of Kalamazoo. And I am calling in support of the Housing Equity Ordinance. I didn't actually prepare comments, so I'm sorry if this is a little inarticulate, but every time I get on one of these commission meetings and I start hearing the landlords, I get kind of irate. It's unfathomable to me that folks are pushing back against this ordinance when all they're being asked to do is not discriminate. The financial incentives around being a landlord are often what is cited as a reason for not supporting this ordinance. And, I think that Kalamazoo really needs to send the message that if you're interested in just making money on your money, there are lots of other ways to invest. You can invest in people, you can invest in businesses, you can invest in other kinds of properties like commercial properties. If you're owning homes as a way to finance your own future, as a way to finance your retirement, and and it's not a home you live in, you're renting it, you have to really think about the fact that you are controlling something that is a basic human right in our community, and you have to be ethical about that. So it's just I don't know. It's mind-boggling to me to hear landlords who push back on an anti-discrimination ordinance. Our folks are hurting out there. Lots and lots of our neighbors are hurting. Landlords already have control. They don't need to sit on these committees. They already own the property. They already determine what repairs are made and not made to the properties. They determine, security deposits and what the rent prices are going to be. This is an opportunity for people to fight back against discrimination. This is a way for us to put some teeth into non-discrimination in our city around housing. So I completely support it. And I also just want to push back against the idea that landlords have to be involved every step of the way when they are the ones that are creating the problems that necessitate this ordinance in the first place. So anyway, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate y'all.
Hi, my name is Michelle Davis, and I'm the Executive Director of Housing Resources located in the city of Kalamazoo. I'm calling tonight to ask you to support the Housing Equity Ordinance as soon as possible. There has been so much work done to ensure that this ordinance is simply about equity and human rights, the right of a safe, affordable, and equitable housing for everyone. Please adopt as soon as you can.
Mr. Mayor, that was the last comment that we received on the phone. Again, we had one other comment that came in from an individual who said their phone was not working correctly. So again, we normally don't do this, but we did receive the message, so I'll go ahead and read that. It's from Mr. Jeff Messer, a city resident. Tonight, I'd like to save the people of Kalamazoo some money. Over the past 4 months, many people have fallen out of the habit of complying with the city's parking ordinances in the neighborhoods. For example, the Ford Fusion SE that has been illegally parked on the sidewalk in the 700 block of West Cedar Street since at least March. Another example, the on-street junkyard on the south end of Potter Street, where a no parking sign has been removed from the consumer's energy pole. Residents have fallen out of compliance because there's been no neighborhood parking enforcement since Monday, March 23rd. My question for City Manager Jim Ritzma or Public Safety Chief Thomas is, on what date will neighborhood parking enforcement resume? By pushing this date into the public domain, I can save Kalamazoo residents money by letting them know that when they have to resume complying with parking ordinances. The only date I can come up with is Monday, July 27th, because that is when the city's partial furlough ends. The city has a history of discontinuing parking enforcement for long periods and resuming without public warning. For example, daytime neighborhood parking enforcement was discontinued on May 31, 2013. 2 years later at City Hall, after a city commission meeting, I asked former Public Safety Chief Hadley about resumption. He said they did plan to resume. I asked him to please put out a press release before resuming. That press release never came. Daytime neighborhood parking enforcement resumed without public warning 4 years later on Tuesday, August 8, 2017. So please inform the public before resuming the neighborhood parking enforcement. The other way I want to save residents money is by reminding them that all fireworks use is prohibited at all hours of the day until 11 a.m. on the Saturday immediately preceding Labor Day in September. Firework discharge at any time before that is punishable by a $1,000 civil fine. Note that is a civil infraction offense, which means the city only has to prove your guilt by preponderance of the evidence standard, the lowest possible evidentiary standard. You don't have to be caught red-handed. If the city can prove that it's more likely than not that you are guilty, then you can be found responsible for a $1,000 fine should you choose to contest it in court. Citizens who would like to report violations should call Kalamazoo Central Dispatch at 488-8911. You must provide the call taker with a specific address of the violations. Thank you, Jeff Messer, Kalamazoo, Michigan. Mr. Mayor, that was the last public comment under general public comments.
Thank you so much, Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain, for managing that activity and that access. And I want to thank everyone who took the time and made the effort to call in this time when we're doing the best we can to get public comment during our Zoom meetings. Next item is G, is the consent agenda. Deputy City Manager Moore, will you please take us through the consent agenda items?
Thank you, Mayor. We have items 1 through 15. Approval of a professional service agreement with Prine and Newhoff for construction engineering services for the Richland Township Water Main Loops, Contract 3, in the amount of $136,300. Approval of a one-year contract extension with GHD for environmental consulting services for the Cork Street landfill in the amount of $146,425. Approval of a professional service agreement with Prine and Newhoff for the Cooper Township water main and service installations and Glendale Boulevard water main replacement in the amount of $273,000. Approval of a professional service agreement with Prine and Newhoff for the construction of engineering services for the Cooper Township water main and service installations in the amount of $364,000. Approval of a professional service agreement with Prine and Newhoff for engineering services for 2020 East Side non-copper replacement project in the amount of $441,500. Approval of a contract with PayJ Excavating Inc. for the Richland Township water main loops in the amount of $1,674,825. Approval of a contract with USA Earthworks LLC for the Cooper Township water main and services installation and Glendale Boulevard water main replacement in the amount of $3,390,105. Approval of a contract with Lounsbury Excavating for the Cooper Township water main and services installation in the amount of $4,599,651. Approval of a contract with CB&I Storage Tank Solutions LLC for the construction of the super high pressure district elevated water storage tank in the amount of $4,899,500. Approval of a contract with SWT Excavating Inc. for the East Side non-copper water service replacement project in the amount of $8,606,594.30. Adoption of a resolution from the Michigan Department of Licenses and Regulatory Affairs Liquor Control Commission recommending approval of an on-premises tasting room license for the Roche Collection, LLC at 1311 Portage Street, Unit 1327. Adoption of a resolution designating the polling facility location for Precinct 6 to be used during the election on August 4th, 2020, and at each election thereafter. Approval of a request from the Kalamazoo Growlers to publicly display fireworks at Homer Stryker Field on July 24th and 31st and August 7th, 15th, and 28th, 2020. Approval of the mayor's appointment to the following boards and commissions. The appointment of Jamaria Bogan to the Economic Development Corporation and Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Boards of Directors for a term expiring on March 31st, 2026. The appointment of Lucas Middleton to the Economic Development Corporation and Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Boards of Directors for a term expiring on March 31st, 2026. The appointment of Carla Reganis to the Historic District Commission for a term expiring on January 1st, 2023. The appointment of Eric Stuckey to the Historic District Commission for a term expiring on January 1st, 2023. The appointment of Fred Edison to the Historic Preservation Commission for a term expiring on March 31st, 2023. The appointment of Catherine White to the Historic Preservation Commission for a term expiring on March 31st, 2023. Approval and acceptance of a public utility easement agreement with Richard N. Schmidt for property at 3127 Lovers Lane in the amount of $830. That is the consent agenda, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Deputy City Manager Moore. Commissioners, the requested action is to approve items 1 through 15 and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion? Commissioner Hess, motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Urban. Clerk Borlene, please call the roll.
Commissioner Cradle.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Next is the regular agenda, H. Deputy City Manager Moore.
First item on the regular agenda, we have the adoption of an ordinance authorizing water supply system revenue bonds, Series 2020B, in an amount not to exceed $23,500,000.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager. Commissioners, the recommended action is to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Okay, thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Cunningham. Is there support?
Second.
All right, I saw Commissioner Pradle's hand there. So seconded by Commissioner Cradle. Any discussion? Commissioners? Commissioner Cradle.
Is this a chance where we could ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
I just thought it might be a bit confusing for residents out there to see this up on the agenda again. And so I was going to ask City Attorney Robinson if he wants to just kind of explain a little bit about how we first saw some of this on March 2nd, which was considered the adoption of the notice of intent to assume bonds, and that was for water and capital improvements. And maybe you can just explain to the public a little bit about how that works and how, since
March 2nd till today we got to this point.
Attorney Robinson, you are muted. There you go.
Caught me a little off guard and for that question. It is because this is, our bonding is done through outside counsel, and there are certain bond requirements that have to be made, and there's an opportunity for certain types of bonds, and I don't recall whether the water supply bonds fall within this category or not, for people to actually challenge it and ask for a referendum. Oftentimes, and there's a very short period of time for people to gather signatures. So you've got to go through all of those steps in order to make sure that you can bring the ordinance before the commission for its approval. And so that's the reason for some of the delay, because of the bonding statutes in this state. And again, we rely upon bond counsel to give us advice, to review the text of the bonds, the resolutions, and the ordinances. Obviously, I look at them as well, but I rely heavily upon our bond counsel. And that is somebody who's been doing that for us for several years. Pat McGow, he's out of the Detroit office of Miller Canfield, and he's recognized throughout the state as one of the top experts in this field.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Other questions? I'm sorry.
Mayor, we also have our CFO, Steve Vizensi, on the panel tonight if there are additional questions on the bonding resolution.
Thank you, DCM Moore. Are there additional questions from commission? I don't see any at this point. I guess I just want to make a couple general comments about this, is that this is a very large bond amount for the city. And I want to keep it in mind that these are water supply system revenue bonds, which means they are not general obligation bonds. These are bonds that will be repaid by revenue in the water system. In addition, if you're going to look back on our consent agenda tonight, you will see work being done that is not in the city of Kalamazoo. So this is just a reminder that the city provides water and sewer services to a larger area than just the city of Kalamazoo. So some of this work is done outside of the city of Kalamazoo proper. We are the greater Kalamazoo municipal system when it comes to supplying water and sewer services. So these particular bonds are supporting some of the work that we're talking about, and that is what is on our agenda for this evening. Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Cradle.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion passes. Deputy City Manager Moore.
Have regular agenda item H2. This calls for the adoption of a resolution for the issuance of general obligation limited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $14.5 million, $11,750,000 for projects, and $2,750,000 for refunding for the purpose of refinancing for the purpose of financing FY 2020 capital projects and refunding the city's 2010 capital improvement bonds and 2011 building authority refunding bonds.
Thank you, DCM Moore. Commissioners, the recommended action is to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Urban, supported by Commissioner Cunningham. All right, thank you so much. Commissioners, is there a discussion or questions? All right, seeing none, then Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Cradle.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion passes. Next are reports and legislation. Deputy City Manager Moore, do you have a report?
Yes, Mayor, we do. We would like to provide an update on our action plan that was presented to you last business meeting. I'm going to ask Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain to conduct that report.
Good evening. We want to give you an update on a number of the questions and discussion points regarding activities that happened here in the last month, especially specifically questions regarding public safety. And to address a number of these questions, we are going to put together a web page for the public that will be available here in about a week, but we want to preview it to you tonight and also publicly here. And the idea here is to have a public web page that can answer a lot of questions, and also be a public web page where a lot of the commonly asked for documents that we get can already be made available and be right there and easy to get to. So what we are looking at is just a screenshot of a mock-up of this web page that we'd be rolling out here in about a week. First of all, we make it very easy, file a Freedom of Information request. How you can go about doing that. That information is already out there on a number of city websites, but we'll again consolidate it here and make it easy for folks to submit that information. The Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeals Board. That's a board that there are a lot of questions been raised about that and how they operate and who they are and what their roles and responsibilities are. So we're going to put all that information right there in one spot and again, make it easy for people to understand their roles and responsibilities. Data, crime, and statistics. Obviously, we collect a lot of data. We do publish that already, and we will make it available here. And again, we'll take that information that's already public, but make it here, make it easier to understand. Policies and union contracts. Some of the questions that were actually raised tonight, there was one caller that had a question about one of our policies. There are numerous policies regarding the work of public safety, ranging from the mundane to very complicated topics. And so we are going to make as many of those available as we can. We're going to err on the side of disclosure. And there's also been questions raised about the contracts that the city has with our police unions and our public safety unions. And those are documents that are available. And so we'll put those out there on the web also. Public safety budget. It's a very complicated budget because as we all talk about, we do public safety, which means police, fire, and EMS. We are putting together a web page where people can actually go to city of our budget, look at public safety's budget specifically, and then look at where some of that revenue comes from, but then also where that expenditures are and within the different operating divisions of public safety. So people can actually drill down and look at different components of public safety's budgets. We're also putting out there documents that we already have, but the city manager's action plan. This is the action plan that City Manager Ritzma went over, including the idea of an outside independent review of the events of early June. So as we go through those steps and we get reports on that, we will make those public as we can. And then we'll use that as a way to keep people informed of where we are with the process. Frequently asked questions. Again, these are a lot of just miscellaneous questions that we get. And we said we might as well try to compile them all into one location. So questions about how does our activities compare with 8 Can't Wait or President Obama's 21st Century Policing report. That's the type of information that we'll be putting there. And also, again, frequently asked questions that we get from the public. Jobs recruiting and training. We have questions about how we go about recruiting. And then also, what are the types of training that officers go through as they come into the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety? And we've got that information, and we'll be putting that out there for the public also. And then finally, public safety accreditation. Our Department of Public Safety is going through an accreditation process right now. And what that does is there's some very high standards. They'll be reviewed by some national bodies. And again, as we go through that information, we'll make that public also. So again, we just wanted to preview that tonight. We will be releasing public media alerts. We'll be putting it on our social media pages. There'll be an easy to understand web page address that people can get to. And we'll also have this on the city's web page, homepage. So we just want to let the City Commission know that, also let the public know that. I'll give you a little preview of that tonight. And then also that we will be letting the public know when we have all those documents available. And then finally, just one last point, we do anticipate this being a page that will be adding documents over time. So as we get more information, as there's more reports that come out, let's say as far as the review, one of the things also we talked about was an update to the traffic study. Those are things that we'll be adding to this page, and will, again, make it easy for the public to find it all in one spot. So thank you very much for having the opportunity to preview that.
Thank you, DCM Chamberlain. Anything else, DCM Moore?
Nothing else, Mayor.
All right. Any reports from the city attorney's office?
No, Mayor, there's not.
Any reports from the clerk's office?
Yes, Mayor, I do want to let people know that absentee ballots are available now for the August 4th primary election, and you can make that request by emailing us at elections@kalamazooCity.org. We can send you the application form. We also can take requests through the Michigan Voter Information Center now. The Secretary of State has come out with that as an option. All voters in the city should have received absentee ballot applications in the mail. And so, you know, the options I gave are if you've misplaced the application or for some reason didn't get it, you can contact us. You can also call us and let us know, and we can send you an application. And for people who have their ballots, the nice thing now is that City Hall is open again. People can return those ballots in person during the hours, and I encourage people to check out the website for the City Hall public hours. And the other options are the new drop box we have behind City Hall, and of course through the mail. So absentee ballots are out there, they're available. We encourage people to vote.
Thank you so much, Clerk Borling. So the date of this coming election is?
August 4th.
August 4th. Will there be any opportunity for people to vote in person if they so desire?
Yes, the normal voting precincts will be open on August 4th.
Okay, great. Really appreciate the new drop box. Check it out. It's right along the street there, very handy. You can put things in without having to touch anything. No doors to lift, right?
Yes, correct.
Yes. Thank you, Clerk Borling. So at this point, now's the time for commissioner comments. Is there anybody you'd like to start? Commissioner Cradle.
Actually, if it's okay, can I just ask Clerk Borling a question?
Oh, yes.
Sure.
Clerk Borling, in the consent agenda, we passed a piece that was talking about Precinct 6.
Correct.
Would you mind just letting the public know about that change and the different location?
Right. Precinct 6, at least for the remainder of this year, is going to be moved from Friendship Village, the retirement community, just down the street. Literally, you can see one from the other, to the K-RISA West Campus at the corner of Croydon and Drake Road. And that's largely in an effort to keep those residents of Friendship Village safe during this time, and to not put anyone at risk by having a lot of people coming through their facility there.
Do you anticipate any other precinct changes before August or November?
We are looking at, there is one other precinct that we're looking at that, that has expressed concern about having voters come through. We're looking at different options for that right now and what we can do. And, you know, we're trying to resolve that as quickly as possible. But there is one other possible location that might change.
I was reading that the state of Michigan saw, I think, a 350% increase in absentee. Are we seeing a similar increase compared to previous years?
I don't know what the numbers are from 2016, looking at the August election in 2016. I haven't made that comparison yet, but I can tell you we have issued over 9,000 ballots so far, which is a large amount for us. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see when the comparison is made to see a similar size increase on a percentage basis.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Cradle. Thanks for all your good work, Clerk Borling, just making sure everybody gets an opportunity to take advantage of what is so important for all of us to vote. So thank you so much for your work.
You're welcome.
And your team as well.
Yes,
Please pass that
definitely.
on. All right, so back to commissioner comments now. Are there commissioners who would like to make some comments this evening? I can. All right, Commissioner Cunningham.
I guess I'll make it a routine to break the ice for everybody.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, actually, I'm sorry. Give me a moment. That was my air conditioning running. So I just wanted to highlight a couple things. First of all, housing. Housing is a very important subject right now. Uniqueness of it, dealing with COVID is something like that I've probably never seen before, and I'm not sure that our community has really experienced before, but it's literally almost a bone dry market out there. My perception or my good guess would be because over the last, during this time of COVID, individuals are either stuck in a contract, haven't been able to get evicted, haven't been able to find other locations because of lack of mobility, because of COVID. And so I think this is breeding an unusual space where a lot of these places and spaces are just filled up, and housing is really tough right now. So my ask to my colleagues and the city at large is that if you are aware of any housing, please send it over to me. I have multiple families who are looking and are in need. I had opportunity to speak to Commissioner Cradle earlier today, and we both acknowledged that relatively soon here, the eviction process will open back up. And I'm sure we'll be running into the scenario of how do we address and or assist in that process as best as possible. But I think all of this kind of really hones in on the need for more affordable housing within our community on a larger, much larger scale. So I just want to, speak to that briefly, and then I also want to highlight in regards to the web page to the community. The web page is just an avenue to keep you guys updated. So it is just one microcosm or one cog in the process. There are a lot of moving pieces going on right now. I have a rolling list of items that we are looking to change and or address and or create more accountability. So for me, the three things that I definitely want to see comprehensive change will be, and this is more towards my colleagues also, comprehensive change in communication, comprehensive change in accountability, and then a comprehensive change in our standards. And I'll continuously repeat that because, I think it is imperative that we as a city commission understand that the success and or failure of our public safety, city staff, or any other piece of our administration falls back solely on us as leadership. And so there's a uniqueness that it is 4 votes for everything, but that's where my leadership is going, is that we have complete accountability, that our standards change, and we no longer allow some of the things that we've seen transpire in our community, and that our communication finds a better way to move forward in that component. And then last but not least, I am honored to be a part of a team that is bringing the Brothers of George Floyd to Kalamazoo for a march and rally this weekend. So we shall be receiving some national attention. To my colleagues, I want to give an open invite for you guys to be in attendance. And it's really a good opportunity to show what our city, what Southwest Michigan, what Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, because there will be individuals from a majority of these places in attendance. Just show what we're about, with some high profile individuals coming into our community, individuals who are at the epicenter of a lot of what's going on right now. To be here, it's A, an honor, and B, I look forward to this event. So that will be this Saturday, 2 p.m., Bronson Park. There will be a rally, there will be a march. And the true intention behind all of it isn't just, obviously a piece of it is symbolic. Obviously a piece is civil disobedience, but the crux of it, and this is from my colleague, is the reality that there needs to be a systematic change. And so I look forward to this coming weekend. I look forward to seeing the community out. And I think that's all that I have, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cunningham. Other comments? Yeah, Commissioner Hess.
Thank you, Eric, for bringing George's brothers to town. I would ask that anyone who attends that event mask up. One of the comments I wanted to make was, I implore us all as members of this community, which again means to have charge up together, that we embrace each other and wear our masks in public for our sake and the sake of those around us and the sake of all the vulnerable among us. And as our prayer today said, we need to come here with open hearts, with open spirits, and have courage and wisdom and openness and strength. And I agree with you, Eric, that we do have things in front of us and see change that can and should happen on our watch. We need to have the courage to say that Black Lives Matter, and they do. And here in Kalamazoo, we can make that change. One of the things that I'm going to be doing in response to the concerns with Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety is doing a ride along. And I want to learn firsthand what goes on. I do know that last year, 114,000 calls for service were made to Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety, and that they do protect and they do serve. And I know that Commissioner Urban and I are working to try and find ways to hold them accountable for recruiting methods and budget spent. I want to send sympathies to all those who have lost loved ones and family members during this COVID, who cannot properly celebrate with a funeral or a celebration of life of people together. So sympathies to all those, whether lost in COVID or of natural causes. And to those who have the joy of welcoming new life into their families, and sometimes have to bear that burden alone. That said, the sympathy and the joy is this idea of mental health, and we have to be there for one another in this community. We have to be there and paying attention to one another. Griffin Place Again Two-One-One, in a mental health emergency. Please reach out. Check on your neighbors. Check on your neighbors not only in this COVID time, but in this heat. The city does have a plan for helping with the heat issue, but please check on your neighbors and talk to your neighbors. The issues that we're facing here in the city don't happen in a vacuum. And my gratitude, one of the words that Michelle used in her prayer was gratitude, over and over. My gratitude goes out to the tireless work of those city staff who are working on this. And I assure you, we're working on the housing issues. We're working on Chapter 18 and how to bring fair housing and equal housing to the city. So gratitude to all of those who are working daily, tirelessly to make the city a better place to live. I do believe this will take a village. Gratitude also to all the voices tonight. I know that as we sit here, and if we were in the chambers, there would probably be a line out the door of people wanting to talk with us, and we would listen to you. So thank you for calling and for giving us your opinions on what needs to happen in this city. Thank you, Clerk Borling, for talking about voting. please everyone make a plan to vote both in August and in November. And then also, if you haven't done so, please fill out your census. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Someone else who would like to make comments? Yeah, Commissioner Cradle.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Just wanted to take a minute. Heard from a number of residents reaching out with concerns about speeding and reckless driving in neighborhoods. And just to know that you're not alone. We've heard from a number of people, and between just COVID kind of reckless driving that's on the uptick, there's just a lot of construction and people are going into a lot more neighborhoods than usual. And please just continue to call KDPS's non-emergency number, 269-488-8911, to report those instances so that they can start to keep a log of areas that seem to be hot spots where things are happening so they can monitor. Monitoring enforcement is just part of the equation. Vice Mayor Griffin and I had a conversation today about, it has to be twofold. It can't just be about enforcement. It has to be about long-term actionable steps to try to improve the things that we're seeing in our neighborhoods, and especially neighborhoods where there's a lot of non-motorized traffic and neighborhoods with children. So I just wanted to lift that up for a minute, let people know that we're listening to that. We hear you. Just going to echo what Commissioner Hess said. Please wear your mask. I don't know if anybody else notices this as well. I mean, certainly there are people all across, but there just seems to be this like masculinity thing where it's like, I'm not going to wear a mask or whatever, or I'm too tough for that. And I can't stress it enough. It's in the 90 degrees outside, but it's not about you, and it's not about your vanity or masculinity. It's about the protection of everybody around us in our entire community, and especially those who are most vulnerable. And, this is just the beginning if we don't all work together to solve this crisis by wearing a mask. And so far, it seems to be the best preventative measure in this re-emergent world we're in right now is to wear a mask. So please wear a mask. Also, just wanted to share, if anybody has any thoughts about the dashboard with information was shared tonight, please reach out to us, any of us on commission, with any feedback or ideas you have, because maybe something you have an idea could be a great complement to that dashboard. And then also, I just wanted to reiterate, hopefully some folks caught my question, but I wanted to really emphasize the fact that the outdoor emergency action that we passed tonight first in the meeting for restaurants and businesses is not just for downtown. I made sure to specifically ask that, to lift that up and make sure that everyone heard that so that people understand this is to support all businesses in our community, irregardless of your size or where your proximity is. Wanted to just take a second to share as well that it's been 42 days, it's been 6 weeks since the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. It's a long time, 6 weeks. And I'm proud of everybody who's continued to reach out and continue to protest, including this weekend. I know people have been burned out and exhausted long before the death of George Floyd and the murder of George Floyd. But I guess I just wanted to share that, I think sometimes the greatest changes in our society come not only in times of crisis that we've seen, but also times when just about everybody else is giving up, when somebody stays strong and keeps fighting for change and reform, that's when it happens. And, we have an opportunity for both right now. And so I hope people are taking care of themselves. I just want to acknowledge that it hasn't left my mind. It will not leave my mind. I know that there are a lot of people in the city who continue to work very hard at the request of this commission and city's leadership to keep working. You'll continue to see more beyond just the dashboard tonight. But I just wanted to make sure I took a moment to share that it's still on my mind. It won't leave my mind, and we'll continue to work to make change. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cradle. Commissioner Urban?
Yes, sir. I would like to add to what the others have said, the additional thing that something that's going on nationally that we are taking for granted as a given, which is the great income inequality in this country. back in the 50s, when everybody was feeling so prosperous, the inequality in income between the lower 10% and the top 10% was far, far less than it is now. And those times were considered, at least economically, to be good times. So if we could get back to that level of let's just put it this way, less inequality in income, that would go a long way to relieving a lot of the suffering that's going on in our country. Now, here's something else I want to add. I'm concerned about the cultural competence of all the new recruits that are being sought to become part of DPS, the Department of Public Service. I just want to let everybody know that I need to see, I hope to get some evidence that will satisfy me that all the new recruits will not be like people we hired 30 years ago. I need to see whatever evidence can be found, and I hope it's sufficient that will satisfy me that we're not hiring the same kinds of people that wanted to be policemen 30 years ago. So we have about a month or so to do that before the August recruiting class starts. And I just want to let everybody know that that's an issue I have, and I hope the rest of you will join me in pursuing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes, so I have a few things here. First, I'll start off with addressing some of the comments that came through. And so thank you all, as Commissioner Hess said, thank you for all the folks who did call in. I'm especially excited about the resolution that has been discussed in terms of evictions and so on and so forth. I think it's great when things come up from the community in terms of solutions for issues that are affecting the community. I think I may have spoken this to the person that sent it to me. For me, with anything, it's always about the accountability and the teeth per se that can go with it. So again, I look forward to getting into that more sooner than later. With respects to the housing equity ordinance, I just want to say, and I've said this before, as far as the issues that we have in this community, they're not specific to this community, but that particular ordinance, we're talking about discrimination, right? And you're either for discrimination or you're not. There is no in between. And so that's where that is. And so there are landlords in this community, there are property owners in this community who absolutely do not believe in discrimination and do not operate like that way. And so just to lift those folks up and to not have it appear as if, everyone in one category is one way. That's how you create that us versus them. I come from a family of property owners. I was a landlord, property manager for many, many years, and I don't buy discrimination. And I know you can functionally operate your business without discriminating against folks and not lose money doing so. And so just to put that on the table there. And so in terms of getting educated, there are many, many resources out there that you can become educated on with respects to what's going on in the climate of housing. So that we presented on this in February. It's now July. So again, that opportunity is still there to learn what's going on, because we're going to progress with this. It's time to make these changes in our community. So that's all I have to say on that. I want to switch up for a hot minute. We've been talking a lot about pandemic with COVID. We've got the pandemic of racism. We've got the pandemic of gun violence that I just want to touch on for a hot minute. And let me say this, you can talk about them all. It's not one or the other, it's a both and. You can be just as outraged for the disparate treatment, for the flat out racism that a community and communities of people experience with law enforcement, and be equally and just as passionately wanting to change the outcomes as it results to gun violence. It's unfortunate that I feel like it's a design of the system to make it feel like you have to choose one struggle over the other. That's not true. And at least that's not how I'm going to approach this. There are many struggles. We're going to deal with them as much as we can, all of them like this, so we don't continue to have this going on in this community. And so, you know, we've had children that have gotten shot. We have fathers who have gotten shot. We have enough is enough. And there are people out here doing the work on the ground. And I just want to lift all of them up who have been doing this work, you know, leading up to this and through this. I know Ed called in earlier. I just want to circle back to that. I was out there with members of the community. Shout out to Gwendolyn Hooker with Hope Network, and all of the other folks that were mentioned earlier on this Thursday at Dacia's, which is 715 Douglas Avenue from 6 to 8 p.m. Folks will be back out there to discuss information on voting, registering, even talking about what happens after you vote people in office, that accountability, the census, getting information on knowing your rights and all of that. Yes, please wear your masks. We are absolutely in the middle of that pandemic, but there are some things that require some on-hand, on-the-ground work. And that's what's happening. So shout out to everybody who is doing that. I also want to take the time to really highlight Kevin Ford and thank Kevin Ford for the work that he's doing. For those of you who do not know who he is the Shared Prosperity Kalamazoo coordinator, of which I sit on the organizing committee. For those of you who did not have a chance to catch our public meeting today, please make sure you do that. It's available on the City of Kalamazoo's Facebook page. But one of the things that I can appreciate about Kevin Ford is that what he is leading us to is radical, unapologetically radical social transformation as it relates to this work. And that's definitely what needs to happen in order for us to see not programmatic shifts, but systemic changes in our community. So I'm very excited about that work. I also want to touch really quickly. I'm thankful to the staff for putting together the information, that layout that's needed. It's probably a little past due, but we're getting there now. So that's definitely appreciated. One thing I do want to highlight, and I think Commissioner Urban and Commissioner Cunningham spoke to this, but we have to do better with our communication. We've got to be a little bit more clear as well. 2 weeks ago, I know at the end of that commission meeting, for those who stuck around, I asked for some specific things, and I said in 48 hours, because I just felt like certain things should have been able to be answered in 48 hours. And it's 2 weeks later, and we don't have those answers yet. And while I appreciate having a landing page, where is the mechanism for our community to be able to be involved in things that are going on as it relates to, and I'm speaking just in terms of the Department of Public Safety, but in general, but with that specifically. So there were specific, we'll say tear gas. I'll use that as an example. We had so many community members lift up and be very explicit about tear gas and how they feel about tear gas being used in our community. When is that conversation going to happen, and where's the mechanism for that to take place? Is that at CSRAB? You know, I'm not asking for that to happen right now. What I'm saying is that's something that we need to put in place yesterday, so that when these things come up, there's not 2 weeks and 3 weeks in between. Some of these things, I feel like there could be short, direct answers to get there. So again, we need to establish a foundation of something here in this community that our residents have been asking for quite a long time. Us sitting on this commission are asking for some clarity. Let's just move in that direction. And again, I'm not asking for, you know, an answer tonight, but this is something that I'm saying definitely needs to happen. And so the last, I'll just end with what Commissioner Cradle spoke to as far as speeding. I live on the north side, and I know plenty of my neighbors were tired of folks using our community as the drag strip. I'm really proud of some of our community. Similar to what's happening with these pop-ups, a lot of our community knows that, you know, we have internal work we have to do. So some of my neighbors have put up barriers to stop people from coming down the streets. You know, while we have to wait for policy solutions, while we have to wait for, you know, all these different things to take place, if somebody's child gets hit by a car tomorrow, that's too late, right? So, you know, people living here, we're taking these initiatives, and I'm very proud of the community for doing so, as well as making sure that we get some changes happening in our community with regards to speed reduction, but having great conversations with Director Baker on that, more information to come. So yes, I will end with that, and take care.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Griffin. I mean, I think this tonight is a good example of how lucky I am and how lucky that we all are that I personally get to serve with 6 great leaders who are smart and thoughtful and help us do this work together, which is how it has to be done. So I appreciate that very much. First, just a personal apology for me. We've certainly been getting a lot of communications via email and Facebook Messenger and a whole kinds of variety of ways, and I have fallen behind to some extent on some of my responses to that. I'm sure the rest of the people on the commission are doing a great job, but I will jump out there and say I have fallen behind, and I do read everything, but I don't always get a chance to respond right away. So I apologize for that. I do want to remind folks that for particular questions, it sometimes might be more effective if you're concerned about a pothole in a street and that sort of thing, to call the system we've set up, which is our 311 number, which is the number to call that can, if you don't know what department to call 311. Those folks are trained to help navigate you through the system and get you answers. So please take advantage of that. Also, I do continue, though, to appreciate ideas, thoughts, requests, and suggestions that come through on email. I regularly get stopped when I'm out running and walking around, and anyone is welcome to catch me whenever they can. So I appreciate that. One thing that I really want to recognize this month is that this is the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. That was signed into law by George H.W. Bush on July 26, 1990. And sometimes for those of us who are younger, it seems like this is something that's been around forever. But actually, no, it wasn't until 1990 that the American with Disabilities Act was passed. Been amended somewhat since then. But I have spent a great deal of my professional life in doing this very profoundly rewarding work, attempting to address quality of life issues for individuals who have a disability, particularly in the area of housing. So that has been profoundly rewarding for me, and we need to recognize that work. Still ongoing. There's going to be a recognition ceremony that's going to occur out of Disability Network here in July, and I'm sure you can find that. Also, I'd like to recognize this great group, not only of caring and dedicated commissioners that I serve with, but the city team that I'm blessed to serve with also. We have approximately 650 team members here at the City of Kalamazoo that work every day to make sure that streets get fixed, sewage gets treated, water gets pumped, retirees get paid, plans get made, building codes are upheld, parks get maintained and improved, fires are extinguished, streets are safe, budgets are managed, and thanks to extra funding from the Foundation for Excellence, disaster relief is provided, businesses are helped, housing is improved, neighborhood plans are activated, internet access is provided to underserved residents, and hope is kept alive. City work is community work. And the vast majority of those human beings who are on the Kalamazoo City team see this work as a mission, not just a job. We always talk about how we can be better together and do better together. And I'm sure that we will keep having those conversations with more intensity in the coming months. Let's keep visioning and talking together to build a better, inclusive community. And let's keep our hearts open. Love you, Kalamazoo. We are adjourned.